Before we begin, I just wanted to say a few words about what the Growth Hub is and what we do. In terms of what the Hertfordshire Growth Hub is, we're a fully funded business support service with the clear aim of boosting economic growth in Hertfordshire. The Growth Hub is powered by the Hertfordshire Local Enterprise Partnership, and we are part of a consortium of organisations that includes the Hertfordshire Chambers of Commerce and the University of Hertfordshire. We have a team of experienced advisors who assist businesses through one-to-one consultancy, webinars like this, and events through access to finance for specific growth-orientated projects. About a month ago, we launched a COVID-19 support page on our website, and this has been complemented recently with a dedicated resource area containing a wide range of help, advice and signposting to areas of support for businesses and business owners. And I really would recommend checking this out by visiting that page. It's hertsgrowthhub.com/COVID-19 because through this page you'll be able to access all the support we offer, be able to contact us through various means, and even be able to live chat with advisors too. I think it's an understatement to say these are difficult times for small businesses, and even the most optimistic person would say there will be many more to come. So please do make sure you contact us for any help you might need from ourselves and indeed the wider business support ecosystem. As well as the reason why I say that is because as well as our specific remit for growth within the county, we are very much here to help everyone and every business get through the current period however we can. Before I introduce our speaker for today's webinar, I just want to remind you all that there will be a period of time set aside for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So given that there's so many attendees this morning, if I could ask you to hold on to any questions until the end, this will probably go a lot more smoothly. But that's enough from me. So please let me introduce Cheryl Luzet, who is the Managing Director of Wagada, and they are a fantastic digital marketing business based in Portland. Over to you, Cheryl.
Hello, thanks, Kieran. Can everyone see my slides? Did that kind of work?
Yes, yes.
No, fantastic. Can I just ask if everybody, if you can all mute yourselves? I think sometimes there tends to be a little bit of background noise, and with so many of us on the call, it could actually end up getting quite noisy if everyone knows how to do that. So like we said, we're going to have questions at the end, so feel free to add these either onto the chat or you can just save them at the end and ask them at the end if that's okay. So like Kieran said, I'm the Managing Director of Wagada. So we are a digital marketing agency, and we work with ambitious companies, and we help them to raise their visibility online, to engage with their target audience, and basically get more leads for their business. So as we know, as Kieran was saying, the current situation, it's an extraordinary situation. There's lots of businesses that are closed. We are all facing challenges at the moment. There's a lot of staff that have had to be furloughed. We're all working from home, and that in itself presents its own challenges. I think the key thing is that we don't know how long this is going to last. We know it's not going to be forever. We know this is a short-term pause to our lives, to what we're doing, but we don't have any sort of deadline for how long this is going to go on for. So I think the key thing here is that we need to make sure that we have opportunities in order to put ourselves in the best possible positions for when this is all over. So I think at this point we need to think about our company, what we stand for, and what we want to be remembered for. You know, when we approach marketing during this sort of difficult time, as companies, we will be judged by how we behaved during this disaster, and there will be a lasting legacy from the key messages and activities that we choose to adopt during this time. So we do need to think very carefully about how we act and how you know, what we choose to do during this disaster when we are interacting with the community. So you know, this is a time where lots of companies are struggling with cash flow. A lot of people have had their budget slashed, and therefore they're cutting costs. And we all know that when costs get cut, that quite often marketing is the first one to go. However, you know, it's vital that we carry on marketing during the coronavirus. We need to be out there, we need to be ready when all this sort of gets back to whatever normality is after this. We need to be ready to hit the ground running. And there definitely are some companies at the moment which look like they've shut up shop and they're hiding under a duvet. You know, we don't want to be that company. Don't be that company that has closed its doors, that no one has heard from, because you won't be in a good place to you know, to get more leads and to get more customers at the point where we get back to normal. So I love this quote, and I shared this on LinkedIn recently. It's from Sam Wharton, who is the founder of Walmart, and he was talking about the 1990s recession, and he said, "I thought about it and decided not to take part." And I love that, because I think we've all got a choice here on how we react to this current situation. We could sit down, we could wait for it to be over, or we can choose to fight this out and to really see how we can come out of this, potentially even in a better position than when we actually went in. So there was some research done by someone called Roland Vale during the 1920s, during the recession then, when lots of companies, there were some certain companies that increased their marketing during the Depression and some that reduced their marketing. And actually he discovered that those that increased their marketing were more successful both during the period of economic decline and afterwards. So it does very much seem that cutting budgets, you know, in order to boost short-term profits doesn't actually work. And I think one of the key reasons for that is that in an environment where lots of companies are reducing their ad budgets, it does mean that those that are still active and still engaging, it means they stand out more. So this is your opportunity to grow your market share, to stand out of the crowd and be noticed during this period. And there's some evidence in the 1990s where you know, where McDonald's decided to reduce its marketing budget during the 1991 recession, whereas Pizza Hut and Taco Bell actually increased their marketing budget and capitalized on the fact that McDonald's had gone a little bit quieter. And that actually led to Pizza Hut increasing its sales by 61% and Taco Bell by 40%, with McDonald's declining by 28%. So you think even the very, very big brands can be negatively affected even by a short-term, you know, period of cutting down on their marketing. So I think it's pretty key that we need to be prepared to adapt during this situation, and we need to create opportunities for ourselves. And it's been lovely to hear about all the different ways that different businesses have been diversifying. So there's lots of restaurants that have been offering takeaways or have been selling groceries. Obviously they have lots of contacts with wholesalers, and they could potentially get hold of products that some of the bigger supermarkets with their big logistics problems actually haven't been able to obtain. So there's been some lovely stories of pubs and restaurants that have really forged links with the community while they've been doing this. There's been businesses that have changed the industry that they're working in. So I've heard of recruitment consultants who are now, they've moved to recruiting delivery drivers and NHS workers. So these are industries that are very much in boom at the moment. Obviously, we've all heard of businesses that have moved online, obviously networking groups like this one, children's parties, you know, there's children's parties going on online, it's fantastic, clubs, even yoga lessons. And I do think it will change the way we approach everything afterwards. I can't imagine that we will stop doing online yoga lessons and things like that. It does make life so much easier to do that in your front room. There's been lovely examples of wholesalers moving to B2C. There's that lovely Herts Chamber member, there's a Stickleback Fish who used to supply fish to restaurants and now are going straight to B2C and doing what they can to raise their name and to make some sales by selling their food B2C, which is a lovely example of a diversification. And then obviously we've got high streets, you know, the independent shops who previously didn't have online stores but are now offering delivery to local people. even nationwide. It's all quite exciting, all the different things that people have been doing. And I think there are reasons why we should be excited by the opportunities that the coronavirus has presented us. You know, we now all have a much more flexible workforce. There's so many jobs that previously were said couldn't be done from home. Now we've discovered actually, oh, we can do those jobs from home. Things like meetings, that we probably will do more virtual meetings now. I wonder also things like restaurants, if restaurants will carry on offering takeaway afterwards. This is a lovely story of something that's been going on in St Albans. I don't know how many of you know Christo from Fighting Cocks in St Albans. So this is a pub in St Albans that is widely suspected to be the oldest pub in England. Obviously he can't operate at the moment, but he has been selling food from outside the pub, supporting the community, helping them make sure they get the food that they need. And at the same time, he's getting his message out. He's getting out the message that he is supporting the community, that he's working with local people to help them get the food that they need. You know, I think that's pretty key. Even if we can't deliver the service that we would normally deliver, we can still work to get out our key messages and remind people that we're here and who we are. And there's no reason why we can't put ourselves in a stronger position than we were before. So, you know, in the current climate, we do need to think both short term and long term, you know, and I think it's key that, you know, marketing has both a short and long term benefits. And if you reduce marketing during hard times, you will be playing catch up just at the point where things start to return to normal. So just at that point where you really need to be in a strong position to be going out there to the market. If you haven't been doing any marketing over the period before that, you will find yourself trying to play catch up a little bit. So we do need to approach this strategically and have a strategic plan for how we are going to go about making sure that we are, you know, very much at the top of people's minds at the point where we can start to operate again. So I'm sure all of you already have strategies, marketing strategies, business plans. Obviously, a lot of those will need tweaking now. We'll need to adapt. You know, the situation is very, very different to where we were at the beginning of the year. You probably had very ambitious growth plans at the beginning of the year. Obviously now it may be just a question of how do we survive, you know, making a plan for survival rather than necessarily thinking of how we can grow. I would very much recommend putting this down on paper. I know it's very, very time consuming, and as business owners, we carry a lot around in our heads. But actually, if you were to put this down on paper, it does allow you to share this with other members of the team and review, you know, constantly reviewing what you're doing and make sure it's working. So this is the SOSTAC method, which I'm sure lots of you have heard of before. It's lovely. It very much suits our current situation because it's a cyclical method. And obviously with situations changing so rapidly at the moment, we do need to keep reviewing where we are and what we're doing. I mean, if you Google this online, there's plenty of more information, more detailed information of how you can go about doing this. But basically we work out, where are we now? What is the situation that, you know, your business currently finds itself in your industry? Then we look at the objectives. So where do you want to get to, you know? And it's very key that you know, we might be just in survival now, but we need to be looking at where we're going to be at the end of the year. What, you know, how can we measure those objectives? We need to be able to measure where we're going to be very much at the end of the year. Our strategy. So this is very much is how are we going to get there? So what is our message? What's our story? What's our direction? What segments are we focusing on? We need to very much think about what our plan is around that. And then we come to tactics, which are things like social media, SEO. You know, these are the activities that we're going to do that are going to get us to where we need to be. We take the plan of action and then we measure it. So control is very much about measuring. Have we achieved our objectives? Have we done what we wanted to do? Has it worked? And I think one of the beauties of digital marketing is that you can very easily assess what's worked and what's not worked. So you can see how many times people visited a certain web page. You can see how long they spent on it. You can look at how popular your tweet was. So there's lots of things you can do to work out what's working for you and what's not worked for you. and then you can start right back at the beginning and reassess, because the situation is changing so rapidly. It's pretty key that we are constantly reassessing and re-looking where we are, so we can make improvements. It's very key at the moment that we think carefully about the messages that we want to get out there in this time of crisis. You know, we will be remembered for the messages that we convey at this time. I think it's very key. We're all spending a lot of time at home at the moment, and I think that's made us think a little bit more about home, family values, the community, the support, how we can help each other. And I think one of the lovely things that's come out of the coronavirus is how people have been looking to support their local community. I know particularly on my street, I live on quite a busy road. I never thought that we would become a community. I thought the road was too big and it was too busy, but actually, you know, everyone's been so kind to each other. Yesterday, someone dropped some eggs on my doorstep. You know, I think we are looking a bit more about how we can work as a community. And I think as a business, we need to fit into that community, and we need to support these community values. And I think one business that has worked hard to feed into these community values is Bird's Eye. And they've brought out this lovely video that I'll just play for you, that is very much about what's happening during the coronavirus, and how you know, a brand like Bird's Eye fits into that ever so nicely. So hopefully this will work. You will see that.
I can't hear it though.
Can you not hear it?
No one can hear it.
I can't either.
Sorry, were you not able to hear that very well?
No.
No, sorry.
Not
well,
at
what
all.
it is, I will share the slides afterwards anyway, so hopefully
Okay.
you'll be able to hear it there. But it's a lovely video which very much reflects family values and how we're spending more time at home, and how, you know, as a brand, obviously, Bird's Eye fits in with that anyway. Meals, eating, eating together, etc. Okay, so I think one of the key things from a marketing perspective that I would recommend you focusing on is very much around social media. Social media as a tool, you know, in its most basic form, is free of charge. It is quite time consuming, but at the same time, the investment of the time that you put in, you very much can reap strong rewards from that. So there's lots of advantages to using social media at this time. So particularly one of the key things is that during the coronavirus, usage of social media has gone up quite considerably. So these stats are from Facebook. They reckon that Facebook usage is up 40 to 50% during the coronavirus. And actually, this kind of makes sense, because you know, we want to reach out to our community. We're all at home. We're all in, you know, we're all meeting a very few number of people in it every day. We want to go out and we want to communicate with other people. So I think social media has been our way to reach out to others and engage with them. And this all comes back to something that we talk about a lot, but it's actually more important now than ever, which is about humanizing your brand. And I think the way people feel at the moment is that they don't want to deal with big corporates. They don't want to think about profit margins. They want to think about people, real human people, and they want to see who are the people behind your brand. So if you can use social media as a way of humanizing your brand, making people more familiar with the brand and with the people behind the brand, that all develops trust, and trust will eventually lead to people purchasing from you. You can use social media to integrate with your community. So where there's existing communities, you can communicate and engage with the community, but you can also develop your own community around your business and around your brand, and develop loyalty around that with your suppliers, with your customers, with your potential customers. And this can be a lovely way to foster that sort of community spirit now, which will reap rewards later on when things get back to normal. You can build brand awareness, which I think is one of the key things we need to be doing at this time. Obviously, not all businesses are able to operate at the moment, but we are able which will help us later on when things get back to normal. If people are suddenly thinking, right, I need to go and buy this, and your name, your brand name is at the top of their mind, then you will definitely have an advantage there. We can use it to engage with your audience, help your customers get to know you, get to know what your values are. And I think this is key at the moment, is that we need to make sure we clearly know as a business what our values are, so that we can convey these to our target audience. And lastly, I think the key to remember with social media is that we are selling, but we're not selling. We're not directly selling anything. So we are able to get out our messages about who we are, what we're offering, without trying to push that sales message too hard onto people, which could be quite distasteful at the moment. So one thing that I would definitely recommend for your social media channels is that I think we all start off with really good intentions of how we're going to use each channel and what each channel stands for us. But it can be very easy to kind of, as time goes by, to kind of move away from that and kind of almost forget what our initial plan was with each channel. So I would recommend creating mission statements for each of your social media channels, and then sort of sticking them on the wall so that you've got those in front of you to remind you at all times what the main aim for your business is for each of those channels. So to give you some examples of how you could use each channel, you could say that Facebook is best for acquiring new customers via paid advertising. Instagram could be where you build brand affinity with your existing customers. You could use Twitter to engage with the press and with influencers. You could focus on LinkedIn for engaging your employees or attracting new talent. And you could use YouTube to support your existing customers with sort of education and help and video content, etc. So I think it's key that we do present a consistent message on social media and make sure that we don't move away from this. Because not everyone is on all the channels, so you may only be engaging with certain people on certain channels. So it's key that the message is quite consistent with this. And we do need to think quite carefully about the sorts of messages and photos that you're sharing during this time. I know at Wagada we've had to have a strong think about how we're using our library of images at the moment. You know, because obviously we have lots of photos of us as a team. The whole kind of team spirit is quite important at Wagada, but we're not together at the moment. We're not a team at the moment. So that doesn't really look very authentic at the moment. So we just need to be a little bit careful about how we're presenting ourselves at the moment and make sure it does look authentic and, you know, reflect the reality of the situation that we are currently in. So when we're on social media, it's very key. There's a lot of noise on social media. We need to very much stand out from the competition. You know, we don't want to be bland. We need to have some people that absolutely love us, that become our advocates, that talk about us and share our content. So we may need to be a little bit Marmite. Not that we necessarily want to turn anybody off, but we need to take a little bit of a risk so that what we're offering is engaging enough so that people are passionate about what we do and want to shout about it and want to talk about it. So it's a bit like the margarita pizza conundrum. You know, everybody likes margarita pizza, but those that like pineapple and ham pizza will shout about it and rave about it and talk about it to everybody. I am not one of those people, by the way. I don't know why you'd ever put fruit on a pizza, but the people that do like that, they, you know, they are the people that are going to be talking about you, and they become your brand advocates. So you can have a little think about the sort of phrases that you want to use to convey your brand voice. So I've just put together some examples of types of things that you might want to think about. So maybe you want to be exciting, you want to look organized, wild, spontaneous, or maybe you're thinking you need to be a bit more businesslike and professional. And I think we do need to be a little bit careful with sort of, you know, appearing businesslike and professional. I think lots of people turn to that because they assume because they're a business, they should therefore focus on being businesslike, And certainly there are industries where you would not want to look like you were having fun. If you're a divorce lawyer, for example, you need to look very professional, very business-like. This is not a time to try and look exciting or spontaneous. But actually, a lot of businesses, most businesses, in fact, could take a little bit of a risk to say, you know, we're going to be a little bit less business-like and a little bit more exciting, a bit more innovative, a bit more spontaneous, because that's where you're going to stand out and where you're going to get people a little bit excited by what you do. So I just thought I'd share with you our brand values at Wagada. So we use these in everything that we do, whether we are communicating with our clients or if we're communicating with our staff and how we treat our staff. So we're very human. We like to work with people on a very personal basis. We're very passionate about what we do. So the team are very keen to always keep on top of new developments, and we're very flexible. So this applies to both staff and to clients. So we don't tie our clients into a contract. And with our staff, we're very flexible. We have lots of flexible working opportunities. Work-life balance is really important. And we're also very honest, we're very transparent about what we do. So when we are creating our messages for social media, we come back to these brand values all the time when we're thinking about how do we want to portray ourselves, how do we want people to recognise us when they're thinking about Wagada in the real world. So I just thought I'd share some images that I've sort of gathered over some time of different brands and how they've portrayed themselves on social media. These are all kind of pre-coronavirus images, but it just shows exactly how they want to be seen, really. I mean, the one on the left with all the bowls is a lovely example of some innocent foods, showing how, you know, this is team spirit. They've obviously had a lot of soup. I don't know what that was about, but they're showing what life is like behind the doors of innocent foods. And I think that's quite exciting for people. I think people are interested to know what goes on behind the doors. And like we were saying, it humanises the brand. It helps people get to know them a bit better. And on the top right, I think that one actually fits very nicely in with the coronavirus message, because you know, it very much portrays that staying at home, that family values, having a cup of tea, having a biscuit, doing some knitting, staying warm. I think it's a great image to show at this time when we're all having to finding much enjoyment as we can in staying at home and hunkering down with our families at this time. So one of the key things that I think we need to get across at the moment is about being visible and staying very much at the front of people's minds. So particularly for those businesses that normally rely on a shop front in order to be visible, they maybe don't have you know, the online presence that they actually need at the moment in order to be able to stay at the front of people's minds. So one of the things I was going to suggest is about how you can use Google My Business in order to very much bridge that gap between your website and the consumer. So people might not be yet at the point where they're ready to visit your website, or they know that your website is there, but they can find out about you using Google My Business, and it becomes your virtual storefront, which can be quite powerful at this time. So there's lots of things you can do on Google My Business. You can add lots of images of what you sell, of the team. You can add product images or service images. You can add events and news now, so you can keep people up to date with what's going on. You can, there's a lovely question and answers features that you can do that I think actually Google's removed that temporarily for the coronavirus, but certainly it will bring that back when the coronavirus is over. But what you can do on there is you can actually ask your own questions and then answer them, and it becomes like an FAQs. And this can be really helpful to people who come to the Google My Business and just don't quite know how your service works. Google loves that as well, because Google loves anything where you are offering a comprehensive service and comprehensive information to the customer. So when you go on there, you need to check that you've got the right category, and also make sure that the address for your company is absolutely consistent with the address that you present in other places. So for example, on your website, you should probably all have your address in the footer of your website. you need to make sure that that matches exactly with the address you've got on Google My Business, as well as on other places on the web. So we all gather directory listings. Sometimes we don't even fill them in ourselves. And it's important from Google's perspective. Google wants to work out what your sphere of influence is. So it wants to see how many places on the web you are mentioned on. And it's key that you have a consistent address appearing everywhere on all these places on the web. So one of the key uses of Google My Business is about reviews. And, if you do happen to have some spare time on your hands at the moment, I mean, I know some of us are actually probably busier than we were before, but if you are finding yourself in a situation where you have some spare time, you could invest in approaching some of your clients in order to ask for reviews. And I think people quite often, their heart kind of sinks when I ask them to go and get reviews, because they all feel a little bit demoralized about how hard it is to get reviews. And I think that's the key thing. And I think that's anything with digital marketing, is that anything that you do that is hard work means that there's less chance that your competitor has done it. And actually, therefore, there's an enormous amount of value in you going ahead and trying to do that thing. So I like to think of it about when I did one of my first jobs after uni, when because I studied languages, and they made me ring cardiologists in France and get them to fill in a questionnaire which would have taken them 45 minutes, and we weren't paying the cardiologists. So you can imagine the response rate that we got on that. Obviously, it was not very popular. These were important people doing important things. So, you know, we could only expect to get sort of 1 in 20 positive results. And I think that's the way we have to think about reviews. You may have to ask 5 or 10 people before you get a review, but actually it's still worth doing. And there are certain ways that you can ask for reviews that make it more likely that you get it. And I think one of the key things is asking someone personally. So not sending out a group email, not asking lots of people at the same time, but actually choosing a client that you know's had a good experience, who would potentially want to help you out, and sending them a personal email and asking them if they would mind doing a review for you. And I find that tends to work quite well. We tend to get quite a strong response rate from doing that. I mean, it is quite a key part of your Google My Business profile. But also from Google's perspective, Google will actually take your reviews into account when it is assessing where to rank you on Google. So Google is trying to make a value judgment about your business. It wants to assess how high quality the service is that you're offering, because it very much wants to rank those companies that are offering a high quality service. And Google particularly loves Google reviews because it can verify them. Because you need a Google account in order to leave a review. Google knows a lot about people that have Google accounts. So it can tell whether these are real reviews or not, whether these are real people. They're also great for click-throughs, great for conversions. The stars really, really stand out, and I think people do pay attention to them. So there's a couple of tips to make your reviews more effective. One of the ways, which is quite tricky, is about getting a keyword in your review. So a keyword for what you do. So if you can somehow encourage people to mention the product or the service that you offered, that can definitely help you. So if you are a company, for example, that offers office furniture, and you can get the person to review you to mention the word office furniture, that has quite a lot of weight when Google is ranking you for that phrase. Obviously, the really important thing is we want these reviews to be natural, we want them to be real. So we don't want to be in a situation where you're having to write the review for the person. However, there's certain ways you can encourage them to put the keyword in. So when you ask them for the review, you could say, when you write the review, could you please talk about how the office furniture has changed the way you operate in your business? Which does kind of give them a starting point for mentioning the word office furniture. The other thing that is quite key is about making sure that you respond to each of those reviews. So when someone leaves you a review, you need to try and respond to that review. There is some evidence that the quicker that you respond, the more weight Google places on that response. I mean, we're all busy, it's very tricky, but I have heard that if you can respond within an hour, then actually it doesn't really matter whether it's a positive or a negative review, because you've given a fast response. Google considers that to be, a responsible thing to do, and you'll get quite a lot of kudos from doing that in Google's eyes. So you can do that if you log into your Google My Business portal. There's an area where you can respond to the reviews that you are giving. So to finish off, you know, the coronavirus, it's going to test us all, but you know, we need to very much think long term, keep building our brands and protecting our staff, and very much coming back to our values and how we can honour our values at this time. And I really want us to take this philosophy when we're thinking about the pandemic. You know, are we actually going to allow this to take us down? You know, I don't think so. You know, we mustn't let our competitors sideline us during the pandemic. We need to keep marketing to boost our market share very much at the time that we need it most. So keep safe, everyone. And I'm going to hand over to anyone who has any questions. You might have to unmute yourselves, or is there questions on the chat? I don't know how to view the chat while I'm sharing my screen. Do you know, Alison?
There's one here, Cheryl, from Luke, who says, what would you recommend for a hotel? How do we not come across as ignorant with financial trouble of viewers?
Yeah, so this is a hotel that's trying to promote itself. Is that what you mean, Luke? Where is Luke?
No.
Oh.
No.
He said yes. He said yes.
He said yes. Thank you. So I mean, it's very tricky for any sort of business that is closed at the moment to be authentic at this time. But and also you can't go selling things. You can't say, oh, you can book for Mother's Day next year. That's not going to work. I don't know why my screen's doing that, by the way. So yeah, it is a very tricky scenario. But I think if you think about what Christo has done with the Old Fighting Cocks, he's not focused on trying to sell his services or try and talk about all the lovely things they've got to offer. He has very much gone in about supporting the community. So actually, I think that's what I would recommend, is talking about how they're supporting the community, how they're working together as a team, maybe looking at some profiles on the actual individuals within that business, how we're all working from home, how that is working. I think I would focus very much on the human side of that business rather than talking anything to do with the hotel or anything like that. You could talk, I mean, I guess there's things to talk about what's happening in the hotel at the moment from the point of view of, has anyone seen any animals in the garden? Or, you know, there's lots of stories about foxes coming out because obviously it's all very quiet at the moment. So I do think there's like little human interest stories that would work very well with something like that, as opposed to talking about anything to do with the services that are being sold.
Thank you. There's another question here from Andrew, who just says, can you explain B2C, as we're not all in the same sectors?
Sure, yeah, sorry about that. So what I was talking about with that is where you have people who sell their products normally to other companies. So B2B is selling business to business. And so they might have sold their products to restaurants, to shops. So they're what we call B2B. And what they have now started to do is to think about how they can sell their products straight to the consumer, straight to the customer. So that's B2C. So the fish company that I was talking about, they would always usually sell their products to restaurants. They're actually now doing deliveries to people's homes as a way to keep selling some stock, keep supporting their wholesalers, keep supporting their suppliers, because that's the other thing they need to do, is they don't want to just shut up shop, because then their wholesalers will go out of business as well. There's a whole chain that is affected by this. So so they are now doing deliveries, non-contact deliveries to people's doorsteps, to consumers, in order to try and keep the business ticking over during this period where restaurants are closed.
Thank you. There's another question here from David. He says, do you suggest Trustpilot as well as the Google pages?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we know that Google is using various review platforms when it is trying to get a quality judgment about people's businesses. We believe that those platforms change depending on the industry that you're in. So if you are, for example, a laser eye surgeon, there are particular review platforms that Google would look at for that particular industry. We do think Trustpilot is quite an important one across many industries. It also has lots of lovely options that allow you to embed, you can embed the Trustpilot widget into your website, which allows you to display your rating and some of the reviews on your site. I think you do have to have a paid version of Trustpilot to be able to do that, but that can be great from sort of a conversion point of view. I think the whole peer review thing is quite key, because when people are buying something on the web, they want some reassurance that this is something that, you know, that they're going to be offered a quality service and a quality product. So anything that you can do that demonstrates that you're providing a quality service, such as using Trustpilot or Google My Business reviews, are definitely going to help you. I mean, the issue, I think I would definitely do Google My Business reviews. I would think about adding Trustpilot in there as well as Google My Business reviews. I wouldn't do Trustpilot instead of Google My Business. Obviously, when you have two review platforms that you're trying to get reviews for, it's obviously double the challenge, so it's even harder to get reviews. But actually, you know, if you can get them, then absolutely, I would say if you can use both platforms, that would work really well for you.
Thanks, Cheryl. And another one on Google reviews. Do they have to look at and confirm the review before they get published? Because Emma says her business is new to Google and she's had a few reviews so far, but a number of clients have contacted her to say they've left reviews, but they're not showing up.
This does tend to happen, actually. They don't generally get looked at by a human, but there is definitely some filtering that goes in before they go live. If Google is suspicious in any way that those reviews are not normal or natural, you will find that they won't necessarily be displayed. So one of the problems could be, we had one of our clients once who said, right, I'm going to go and get loads of reviews, and they emailed thousands of people in one day, and then within a space of a couple of hours, I think about 10 people had left reviews. And as far as Google was concerned, that looked really, really unnatural, because it couldn't understand why suddenly there was a large number of reviews being left. And I think a certain percentage of those Google never showed and hid them away because it didn't believe they were real. So I guess it's worth thinking about why maybe those reviews were not left, were not displayed. Sometimes they can take a little while to show, sort of a few days, if there is any sort of suspicion around them. But sometimes you're right, they just never get showed. So we just need to think, maybe, is there a reason for that? I mean, Google will try and work out if people are fake reviews. So one of the things sometimes our clients say, well, I'm going to get everybody in the office to leave us a review, which is a terrible idea, because Google can trace that so easily. Everyone is leaving a review from the same IP address. So you just need to be careful about things like that. I really wouldn't recommend trying to trick Google or trying to create any fake reviews, because it's very easy for Google to kind of spot that. And actually what we really want is real reviews from real people.
Okay. Got another question here from Joe. They're starting a new business in exec coaching, and think they should hold off in terms of any launch or marketing, approaching potential clients, as there's too much distraction right now. Do you have a view on that?
I think it's a shame to hold off, really. I mean, there's never been a better time, really, to try and grab people's attention. I think you have to be quite sensitive about what you do. Potentially any sort of direct business development is probably not going to work at this point if you're a very, very brand new business and don't have anything, you know, behind you. But certainly from a social media point of view, this is a really good opportunity and a good time to start building up your followers, start to engage with people, and just to get your name out there, so that when you come to the point where businesses are getting back to normal again, you're not starting from scratch at that point, because then you'll be a little bit on the back foot at that point, I think. So definitely, I think a gentle approach, getting some social media out there, getting some followers, talking about, I don't know, the people behind the business as a starting point. I think that would be quite, you know, a good prospect is, you know, how you're working at the moment, how you're, you know, how things are going, what you can offer, particularly for business coaches. I mean, people they need help at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if business coaches are doing quite well, to be honest.
Okay, and Emma's come back to us on her question about the Google reviews. She says, is there a way to contact Google to try and get the reviews released?
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to contact Google. Oh, it can be very difficult. You can try. We've had varying degrees of success. If you're doing Google ads, I don't know whether she's doing any paid Google ads, then that does give you a little bit of a conversation starter with Google, because you become a paid customer. So I don't know whether if they are doing that, that can be one way to start this conversation. To be fair, I think the time and effort you will invest in trying to encourage Google to do that is probably better spent trying to get other people to leave reviews for you, or even trying to get that person to leave another review to see if that works.
Okay, thank you. I've got another one here. So Danny says on Google, they've noticed that there are multiple Age UK Hertfordshire with the different addresses and phone numbers, and there should only be one. They contacted Google months ago, lots of occasions, but nothing's been done. Do you have any advice on what could be done?
It is really difficult when you want to get a Google My Business profile taken down that should not be there. It can be very, very difficult to get it removed. One of the reasons could be is if there are signals that suggest to Google that that is still actually there. So whether there's still a website or something that is connected to that particular Google My Business profile that says to Google, well, actually, maybe this does still exist. I mean, I would just try and persist. I mean, there used to be a website, I'll have to dig it out if it's still there, where you could give your sort of feedback to Google on businesses that are closed. So I'll dig it out. If I can find that for you, we'll put it in the slides so you can see if you can do that. But I would just keep going in, you know, where you go onto the actual Google My Business profile and you can report the business as closed. I would just keep doing that. And particularly if you can get more than one person to do that from different places, so from different IP addresses, I'm sure that would have more weight with Google if more than one person was saying the same thing. So whether you can get staff members to do it from home, logged in to a different Google account, that might help you as well.
Okay, thank you. Lisa from the Growth Hub has asked, have you got any further tips on how to increase engagement on socials?
I think the key thing on social at the moment is about it's about us talking as human beings, you know, and not trying to talk from our businesses. And I think so humanizing the profile, getting people to realize that there's a person behind that brand, because that will make the engagement much more easily. I think one of the key things we need to remember about engagement is that it's not all about posting. And I think lots of people think social media is just about posting content. You know, you should be spending 1/3 of your time posting and 2/3 of your time engaging with other people. So maybe that's the best tip really, is to spend as much time as you can engaging with others and talking to others and supporting others and commenting and sharing other people's content. You know, I think that's a way that we can get, if we can show our support for others, I think they will show out their support for us.
Fantastic. Thank you. And there's several people here who've said thanks for a great presentation, Cheryl. So
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming along.
Brilliant.
Did anyone have any final questions for Cheryl?
Cheryl, I've just got one question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, Carol. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, great presentation, by the way. And I think I've got some of my team on as well. So hopefully we will have a discussion internally, because you've added some really great points that we will take on board. In terms of the social media platforms, and I know you've mentioned quite a few of them, is there one that you would say that you would start with first in terms of getting your brand present out versus another? Because we haven't actually used Instagram. You know, we do Twitter, we've introduced Facebook in the last few months, and we use LinkedIn. Is there something, you know, you would say, well, you know, to during this current time start with one particular platform over and above another?
I think Instagram is brilliant, and it is the platform that's growing the fastest at the moment. I think the key issue with Instagram at the current time is that it's very image led, and actually, as we're not getting out and about, finding content for that is quite tricky at the moment. And so I do think Instagram is a great platform. I think it does support other platforms, because I don't see it at the moment as always being a direct lead generation tool. I see it more as supporting other methods of lead generation. So I think it's a way of getting people to know you and getting your brand name out there, so people start to engage with you and then maybe go on your website and then purchase from you. So when we're thinking about clients that have small budgets, we wouldn't start off with Instagram. It would be something that supported some of the other tools, but obviously you've got some of the other channels going as well. I think it very much depends what you do, really. And I think one of the key things, if you're sort of a business to business company, lots of people are quite afraid of using Facebook, and particularly the Facebook ads, because they say, well, Facebook is for personal use, it's not really for business use. But actually, if you think that people buy people in business, if we've been getting really good results for clients that do sell services to other businesses through Facebook ads, because that's where those people are hanging out on their time out. You know, that's where they've got the time to look at ads and to click on them and think, oh, actually, that's quite interesting. So I wouldn't rule out Facebook, even if you're more of a business to business company. But I do think it depends what you do. Remind me what you do, Carol.
We provide construction ERP to software to companies that are from 1 million turnover upwards. So very much a project costing enterprise solution. So, you know, we've got all construction companies that have down tools at the moment, with just a limited companies still actually working on site. So for us, it's actually a good time for us, because we've got the managing directors, CEOs like myself, all sitting in front of our laptops. So this is why we're keen to, you know, not sit quietly and wait for when we're allowed out, is actually getting our marketing messages now out to businesses. But as you said, rightfully, not trying to do that overselling pitch, but at the same time, letting people know that we're out there as a business and we're still open.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, absolutely. Do you do much on LinkedIn? Have you got quite a strong LinkedIn?
Yes, I do. I'm trying to do more. You know, I've posted some videos, which again was a bit out of my comfort zone, but in terms of, you know, with, you know, some of the good work that Herts Chambers have done in terms of, you know, doing that video to thank NHS, I think that's really helped, because as a, you know, as a group, we've been able to share that as well, to show that our responsibility, as well as, you know, we are business leaders as well. So no, thanks very much, Cheryl. That has really answered my question. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks for the comments about the video. Glad you like it. Anyone else got any final questions? No, there's nothing else on the chat. So apart from some thanks to you, Cheryl, again for a fantastic presentation. So Cheryl has agreed we can share her slides. So we'll be sending out an email to everyone with the link to the slides. And so thank you to the Growth Hub for partnering with us and asking us to put on this series of webinars. There will be more coming up, so if you keep an eye on our events pages on our Chamber website, there's going to be more showing up in the coming weeks. So thanks all for attending, and look forward to seeing you again at another of these events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.